Veteran sports writers laid off by the Richmond Times-Dispatch and also by the Fredericksburg Freelance Star. And this is bad news on a lot of levels. Chris Graham here, Augusta Free Press. So I wrote a column yesterday, Wednesday, as I'm recording here on Thursday, about the elephant in the room story in Virginia media circles from yesterday involving the Richmond Times-Dispatch and sports writers David Teel and Mike Barber, and how they had been laid off by the parent company there, Lee Enterprises. Then I found out later in the day, didn't write about this in the column, that a guy named Steve DeShazo, who is a legend in Fredericksburg area sports, had been at the Fredericksburg Freelance Star for 39 years, was also laid off yesterday. So we're talking about some huge names in Virginia sports writing that are now without a job. And so the backstory to this is word has started circulating Tuesday night that the Times-Dispatch, owned by Lee Enterprises, mentioned that. I'll talk more about Lee Enterprises in a moment. Had laid off the veteran duo of Barber and Teel, and then Barber on Wednesday morning confirmed it, and within a lengthy note posted to Twitter. And then again, I found out later that DeShazo had independently confirmed his own layoff, also on Twitter. Barber's post read like a career obituary, really, really, and actually so did DeShazo. So DeShazo's even more so. I mean, he pretty much said, "I'm out of sports writing at this stage." Maybe because he's a few years older. 39 years would imply he's probably in his early 60s. Didn't look like it. Steve DeShazo has aged great. I want to look like that if when I'm in 39 years into this business. I'm 29 years now into the business. So give me 10 years and let's see how I look. But Steve still looks like he's in his 40s. Um, where I mentioned that this is sad news on multiple levels. Let's start with Teel, the 15-time Virginia Sports Writer of the Year. You can't make something like that up. I mean, 15 times. The one year that he had a 9-year streak broken by Mike Barber in 2020. Um, and so, I mean, both guys, and they hosted a podcast together. They worked together on the Times-Dispatch, both, covering the ACC, Virginia Tech. And then Teel also had branched out. I think his last story, as far as I saw, posted, I believe Monday night, maybe it was Tuesday, but overnight Tuesday, but morning, but it was about JMU and its big win over North Carolina. Um, there's no good time to lose your job. But for a sports writer, this is about as bad time as there is, and a journalist in general, this is about as bad time as there is to lose a journalism job, because I mean the pool of jobs in this sector are getting more and more shallow every day, literally day by day, minute by minute. It feels like. The next level up, so it's bad. It's bad for the guys, and DeShazo too, who's already seems like he's recognizing he's going to move completely on to something else. Next level up, this news is another bad sign for Virginia newspapers. The backdrop there being this Lee Enterprises that we've talked about owns 11 newspapers in Virginia, 11 daily newspapers in Virginia, including the Times-Dispatch, the Freelance Star, and the Roanoke Times, three of the five biggest newspapers in Virginia. Um, and those Lee Enterprises papers, I mean, you start when the other papers are, they go up and down the 29 corridor, from Danville to Charlottesville, the Daily Progress, Lynchburg's in between. I mentioned Roanoke. I mean, all over the state. Waynesboro, right here in my neck of the woods, former paper I worked at, Waynesboro News, Virginia. So it's a lot of communities, a lot of regions that are impacted by their layoffs. And when they do this, and this is just the latest in a series of layoffs. Um, but when you get to the level of cutting guys like Teel, Barber, and DeShazo, you're not cutting fat. You've gotten through the muscle. Now you're cutting to the bone. I mean, you're getting the structure of your business here. And it's not like we haven't seen this coming. I mean, I've been talking about this, writing about this for years. The issue is interesting. People will ask me when I talk about it, like, what's the issue? What's going on here? You guys have a lot of readers, right? Yeah, people are reading the news. People are reading the news more than ever. People keeping up with the news more than ever. It's just that the money's not there like it used to be. And I like to tell this story. The last Virginia Press Association Awards banquet that I went to back in 2012, I'm pretty sure it was 2012. There was some sort of lifetime achievement award being given to a former executive at the Times-Dispatch. And man, his acceptance speech was so depressing. He talked about how it's the good old days where a publisher like him, his biggest question was who he was playing golf with on Wednesday, who he's playing golf with on Thursday, who he's having brunch with on the weekend. And it wasn't like that anymore. And this is 2012 we're talking about here, 12 years ago. Back in the day, car dealerships needed newspapers to get the word out about, cars being for sale, new and used cars. Retailers were still largely local. They bought pricey inserts to go in the weekend papers. Classified ads brought in big dollars. Text ad by text ad. We're more than a decade past that depressing speech at that VPA banquet, and the response from the legacy media has been to charge money for subscriptions. On the revenue side, yeah, that makes sense. You need to get some money in because advertising money's not there anymore. And at the same time, on the content side, they're cutting staff. And so you're charging money for a product that is not as good. A third grader could figure out why this isn't going to work. The paper where I got my start is the News Virginian. And I mentioned that as a home base of operations. I'm still based in Waynesboro. Augusta Free Press still based in Waynesboro. I remember in 1996, first weekly all-staff meeting that I got to attend. I started out as a sports writer, eventually moved into the news department. Then I did news and sports for years, kind of like I do now, just a lot less pay. The publisher at the time would come into the meeting, so we would, our staff, we would talk about the news. We, go over what stories we were working on, that kind of thing. And then the publisher would come in, and he was always mad. He was a mad guy just in general. He was steam coming out of his ears when he was walking around, and no matter what you saw. His weekly rant would always be they're beating us, and they would be the news leader, the paper in Stanton, 10 miles to our west. And this is a rare area still. Both those papers still exist as daily papers. It's so when I say it's a rare area that two communities the size of Stanton and Waynesboro, both roughly 25,000 residents, 10 miles apart, both still have independent daily newspapers. Um, Big cities like Richmond have one. Um, go down. Roanoke has one, right? I mean, I'm just thinking through some of the Lynchburg has one, etc. So Waynesboro and Stanton each still have an independent paper in all these years later. But when we were losing the circulation battle, according to this angry steam coming out of his ears publisher, the news leader was that at that time was getting around 12,000 readers a day, and the News Virginia was getting around 11,000 readers a day. Now I checked the circulation numbers. You had to look hard for these numbers. You didn't used to have to look so hard for these numbers, but now they don't make it so easy to find. The Virginia Press Association said as of the most recent numbers, which are still a year old, this is how they don't want to show the continued decline of these numbers. But from 12,000 in 1996, the news leader is at just under 4,000 in 2023. And the News Virginian from our 11,000 that was getting us yelled at by the fuming publisher down to 2352 is the exact number as of the average number from last year. So, I mean, they're at a third to a fourth to a fifth, somewhere in that range of where things were back when I started in this business, all those years ago. My crude analogy for this is the toilet's been flushed, the water is circling the bowl, and it's only going to get worse. Again, when you're cutting guys like Teel and Barber and DeShazo, um, that's cutting bone. That's cutting bone. It's not good for them. The market's flooded with guys like that, who, I mean, if there's too much supply and not a lot of demand, they're not going to get anything close to what they deserve in terms of salary. Um, and For us, the readers, we're losing because we lose the perspective. I mean, Barber, the young guy of the three, I should say, 22 years in the business, Teel and DeShazo, right at the 40-year mark each. It's not just that you're older, you're a better writer because you get better every day and you've had a lot of days to get better, but you also know everybody. I mean, that's, me at close to 30 years, I'm still hopefully getting better, and, you get better every day. So we lose their perspectives. And then where this is going for society is even worse. It's not just, I mean, sports is one thing, this is going to delve into the news side a little bit, but, um, My big concern here isn't even, I mean, I hate for guys to lose jobs, talented guys to lose jobs, but when Lee Enterprises announces its next round of layoffs, and it's coming, it's who knows. What does this mean for the people who were served by the 11 newspapers that Lee owns in Virginia? And they own 77 nationwide. Not, I mean, sports is one thing. Sports is fun. We like to keep up with it. But what about the city council, board of supervisors, the school board? What's going on at your city hall or county government center? What's going on with your police department or sheriff's department? Who's watching those people? That's the big concern for someone like me. I've got my, toes dipped in both pools of water, the sports and the news pool of water. And fortunately for me, I get to, do that work. But um, I mean, it even got to, I saw a thread on a discussion board that I don't often look at, but I had to look at because I wanted to see what people were saying about this news from this week. Who's going to attend the post-game press conferences at UVA football and UVA basketball? Again, that's a much smaller question than who's going to make sure city council is not, screwing things up with our money. But I mean, who's going to push back at UVA Health? This controversy at UVA Health with the, doctors and employees raising questions about the leadership of UVA Health, and now we're wondering whether Jim Ryan's part of a potential cover up of that. Who's going to push back? Who's going to examine that? Who's going to be there to look at that? Who's going to be there to push back at the conservative group of alumni trying to get UVA to um, ignore history is a way to say it. Um, Now, Mike Barber, famously to me, who knows how many other people cared, but he labeled me fringe media a few months ago. He was, towing the party line from UVA athletics, I suppose, on my coverage of the Tony Bennett contract situation, and called me fringe media. And I assumed at the time he meant it as a slur, but I embraced it because you know what? I love being fringe media. Fringe media means I'm not taking the party line. And no offense to Mike Barber, no offense to those who, I guess see their job as in the media as not being media means in the middle from Latin. Maybe there's plenty of folks in the media who see their job being to defend officialdom. I don't see my job being that way, but that's okay. I think as much as you need somebody at a press conference to ask Tony Elliott about the decision to run the ball on 3rd and 5. You need someone like me that will FOIA UVA athletics to find out why Tony Bennett hasn't signed a contract extension. Somebody needs to do that. Somebody needs to be there to. I mean, I've fought a battle with Augusta County for going on 6 months, lapping the calendar 2023-2024 over a illegally held board of supervisors meeting that there was a recording of, trying to get access to that recording to find out what they went into an illegal closed session to discuss. Ultimately, the courts didn't agree enough to give me access to that recording, but that doesn't mean you don't fight it, and it wasn't worth fighting. Who's going to do that in the future, right? Is a question for me. So I want to keep being fringe, and today's news that we're talking about, about 3 extremely talented sports writers and editors losing their jobs, that impacts me too. It might make it so that I've got to do some other things in addition to what I do now, and my days are as busy as they can be as it is. So, well, want to thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And if you have any news tips, any story suggestions, ideas, comments, you just want to say hi, feel free to email me at chris@augustafreepress.com.